This week is an interesting week because it's the week when children have gone back to school. Most of us are all back from holiday, and it is actually all over the press at the moment about how we're going to work in future. Most firms recognise that for those who've just joined them from university, they need to go into the office. And PwC, which has only got 3,000 of its 13,000 employees back in the office at the moment, is insisting that all 1,100 of their new graduates go into the office. The big concern seems to be those in their 30s and 40s, where the work-life balance of being able to see their children has been so much easier without commuting. And if they've got a good working environment, which not everybody has, I realise that, but if they have got a good working environment, they don't really want to go back. This allows them to save on their commute, on their clothes, and also have more time to spend with the family. But interestingly, research is saying that people are actually working about 3 hours a week more than they used to. And other research has said there's also no longer a cut-off. Work doesn't finish, that people are expected to work across different time zones. And that's all seen to be more acceptable if you're at home and less of an intrusion on your life. I'm not sure that that's the case, but that's how it's being seen. And I have to say that having spent some of my time working in the civil service, I'm rather amused, or bemused, I suppose, that the civil service seem to say, we need everybody to come back to work because we don't know if they're working. And I think that's the civil service seems to be so much more focused on process and doing everything right, rather than have I actually got a result at the end of it, which of course in the private sector is all about the results. And I think that that's partly why the civil service are in this dilemma, because they don't have easy ways of actually measuring that people are doing the job. I think it's also because there's such demand for all of those services that are in the cities to have people going back to work. I was just thinking when I was at Canary Wharf, I reckon that within the Canary Wharf area, within walking distance of where I could get to at lunchtime, there were probably 100 places that I could buy a coffee. I don't think there's anybody really working there at the moment. And a regional law firm that I asked them if they could just contribute to this, and they weren't sure that they could, so just sent me their comments and said that they actually were really happy and they trusted their employees to work from home. That wasn't a concern for them at all. What they were worried was about them being tempted to go and work for London firms on London salaries and still being based in their region, which had always been a way of sort of a nice balance that people traded off before. But it's interesting, interesting if we got some legal input later on that I assume that if you're already on a London salary and you start working from home, they can't cut it, but they could actually offer you a lower salary if you were being based a long way from the office and weren't intending to come in very much. And that actually might change the market considerably, because that could mean they can employ people in other countries too. And also I was reading on Sunday an article about many people in their 60s saying that now that they were able to work from home, they were no longer in such a rush to retire. And maybe they would cut their number of working days, but didn't really feel ready to stop. And personally, being in that situation, I think that's great, because I think that I'm at the peak of my abilities and I've learned an awful lot from all the things I've done wrong. And I don't want to stop either. But that would be interesting, the dynamic that would have on the workforce if people aren't retiring. But the drive from businesses to get people back is also out of concern that new people that they take on, particularly those graduates at the beginning of their career, they need those people in their 30s and their 40s to be there, to chat to them about what's going on, to discuss things when they come out of meetings about how things could have gone better, and also for those new people to look at the way these people are working and thinking, well, I don't like the way you did that, but I really like the way you did that. I'm going to try and learn from that. And that is a key thing that goes on in an office that I think we would be losing from people working from home. And then there's also the concern that those people who are working from home may think that there's, how important is presence when it comes to being considered for promotion or being part of networks. And, people might sort of have a fear of missing out, even though they're perfectly able to do their job at home, might feel they need to go in the office in order to get on in their career. But I think most of this will come down to the businesses and their HR policies. Some businesses believe that the status quo can operate really well with staff working from home, but what they're concerned about is being lost is all the creativity and the new ideas. Many businesses are saying, well, we're happy for staff to work from home for 2 days a week, but then find that everybody wants to do that on Mondays and Fridays. And it depends what sort of work you do, but if you need all week round service, then that is a concern. And I've also read that one business saying that if employees were claiming that they were nervous about commuting, which is why they couldn't come back into work because of their mental health, that if they were then spotted in a bar or a restaurant, that excuse would be instantly ignored and they would have to come back. But I thought I'd pull out some of the examples that I've been reading in the press. Goldman Sachs, this is in the US, has said that everybody's got to go back to the office and they have to be double vaccinated. And few doubt that we could demand that in the UK on discrimination grounds. And Facebook has said that some workers may never need to go back to the office again and could even be based overseas.
Hi everyone, I've just stepped outside of the office to come and talk to you about COVID, some of our working practices and some of the lessons that we've learned. I work for G's, we're a salad and vegetable producer, and we grow, we pack and we sell salad and vegetables for all the UK supermarkets and lots in Europe. So you can imagine the majority of my colleagues are actually obliged to be on site. They're all in that production function. But some of our colleagues in the professional services and support functions, then they were the ones that kind of worked 5 days a week from home. And then over time, particularly more recently, most people are now back in on site, although we've actually adopted different working practices as a result of us all getting more used to using Teams and having the Teams app on our phones and things like that. So I thought it might be important to mention what some of the enablers are. There's the obvious, the IT that we needed to set up and make sure it was available on all devices, because we operate an integrated supply chain. So when the people in the offices are pretty regularly talking to people out in the field, and therefore any apps needed to make sure that we work on mobiles. So IT is a given. Actual infection control is another that was really important to us. So we're having fewer people in the office, making sure that we reduce the traffic, having invested in improved ventilation, and putting in kind of one-way systems and things like that most businesses did. I think the other is support for the vaccination scheme. So we're really mindful that it's people's choice whether to take the vaccine, but we are actively encouraging people to do so. And we've got some great incentives like prize draws and things like that. But actually still fairly low compared to the national average. And to be honest, we've also noticed a cultural difference into different people's willingness to take the vaccine. So it's really important that we keep driving that one. E-learning has been another really important thing for us to make sure we could keep up with our training and deliver it in a different way. And actually that's turned into one of the benefits and the learnings, that we could actually deliver some of our induction training prior to people actually coming to the UK and starting work, and so kind of doing all that prep work beforehand and get all that administration out of the way before day one, which actually makes their experience better when they actually come. The way we run our board meetings, that's changed too now, because what we're trying to do is, instead of visiting sites just to have a board meeting and sit in an office, we're actually starting to have the board meetings individually. We're all logging on cameras separately to make sure that there's no side conversations going on with a handful of people in one room. And then we're actually taking time to visit the site, to have a more valuable visit and spend time on the floor and actually speak to people and speak to colleagues, rather than sit, as I say, in an office in a board meeting. Other things that have changed is really the importance of trust, which has been great for G's because it is one of our values. So it's been quite easy for us to promote it, but it's been really interesting as to the difference between how some colleagues have been able to adapt to trusting their team members to work in a different way, work at home and get the job done regardless of whether you can actually see them for 8 hours a day. So trust is something that we're really investing in, and yeah. Then the other one would be, I would say, occupational health support. So making sure that there's plenty of online health support, you know, whether it be somebody who's possibly needing support with their own mental health, or whether it be someone that knows someone that's been ill through COVID, and providing that support so they can access it from home and not necessarily during work time as being useful. I think they're perhaps some of the things that I wanted to say, but I'll be on the meeting later and it'd be great to talk to you and happy to answer any questions that you might have. Take care.
I recently read an article in which it said, if you can do your job from anywhere, someone anywhere can do your job. And I think this sums up the post-COVID work environment. I think it potentially calls into debate whether salary prices can go down because the supply of people who can actually do your job has gone up from different countries, etc. But I'm not going to go into that now. I think most companies have gone into a hybrid working model. You can have flexible working hours where you can put your laundry on in the middle of the day, or you can do the child's run, as long as you can do your job. It doesn't have to be within the 9 to 5. A lot of my friends have moved outside the city because they don't have to be within commutable distance of the office anymore. I think there's benefits to it in that it increases your productivity, and also actually increases your work-life balance, as you know, you can't just sit in your flat and work. You have to go for a walk or get out a bit. Instead of thinking you do your 10,000 steps in the office, you actually have to go and do them. Otherwise, for example, I can only do like 100 steps where I'm going between the kitchen and my desk area in the living room. So looking at it from like a young adult's perspective, I have been in London now for coming up to 3 years, and I have really struggled with the lack of interaction with people. I've been a lot less creative because I'm not able to kind of bounce the ideas off people. A lot of people haven't necessarily met their team, their colleagues. I haven't met the ones which should be working supposedly in the office with me. You know, I have no idea how tall they are. So it is an interesting environment to be in. I think the other point I wanted to bring up was that I think it really benefits people who have got extra places where you can work. So you've got a spare room where you can actually have your office. A lot of my friends are working from their bedroom in a shared flat. I'm working from my living room. And when you have flatmates or siblings or families that are in a tight space, it causes a lot of distractions in the background, and you find that you know, I don't feel like I can tell my flatmate that he can't play music or he can't watch TV, because you know, it's his space too, and it just so happens I'm working in the same area. But going forward, I'm looking forward to working in a hybrid model where you know, when he's in the flat, I'll go into the office, and when he's away, I'll come and work in the flat. But I think I'm going to the office tomorrow, and that's a 45-minute commute. I keep thinking, oh, what am I going to do? What a waste of time. That's a whole, basically kind of an hour and a half of my life where I'm not going to be able to do very much. How did I do that 5 days a week? And it's not something I want to go back to doing 5 days a week, but you know, it'll be good to do 1 or 2 days where I can converse with people face to face. I can have coffee breaks with people. I can actually talk to people, not just on Zoom, because I think that's it's not normal to be looking at people through a computer all the time, and I don't think you necessarily get to know them that well. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the hybrid working model, and I think it will work very well for me because I like seeing my family and my partner, and they're all in different locations, so I can just go and work from where they live. So yeah.
So post-lockdown, MDS has had the opportunity to reflect on what went well through lockdown, what did we learn, what can we take from that to do on a permanent basis, and what do we need to change because it wasn't quite as effective. And the first thing that comes to mind is training, learning and development. throughout lockdown, we did all of our training on a virtual basis, and it was good. Everybody got what they needed from it, and I would say that the trainees that experienced the learning did that to a high standard. What they didn't get was the opportunity to meet as a group, to bond, to share experiences and to network. And so going forward, what we've decided is that we're actually going to do a 50% split. Trainees will definitely get the opportunity to meet their groups, to bond, to share, to network, etc. But what we also know is that working virtually is time effective, it's cost effective, and it delivers excellent outcomes. So we will decide on the courses that we think work best face to face and the ones that we should do virtually. We can only do this because we've all learned to work with technology. I would never have guessed in a million years that I would be working virtually for 18 months, having to use Zoom, Teams, etc. Initially, it was the scariest prospect, and now we all do it as if it's second nature. So we need to make the most of those opportunities, working flexibly. You know, people can work from home effectively. We've shown that. People want autonomy, they want to take responsibility, they're disciplined, they're delivering results, and managers know that they don't need to do the micromanagement and the supervision that they once did, because people are diligent and they want to deliver, and they want to be responsible for themselves. Also, the last thing that I think I've really noticed, and is something that we're going to work on much more post-COVID, is the awareness of mental health, social welfare, and our responsibility to our colleagues, taking into account those that don't have the same opportunities that everybody has. So, for example, you know, not everybody had a workspace at home that they were able to just move into and work effectively from home. Some people had a much easier task when they had to do that. Making sure that people have the right technology, that they've got the resources they need. And when people are stressed and they're under pressure, acknowledging how that might affect them and their mental health and doing something about it. And I think the awareness of that is going to be something that goes on for much longer than COVID.
Mother, would you like to meet Pepper?
Yes.
She's just getting ready for a nap. Oh, there she is.
Tired?
Much better. How are you, Mother?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? So what Christine and Max have asked for is 4 minutes of me asking you questions about what we have all learned from working smart and working better and working perhaps more connectedly and more purposefully during the pandemic. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Your hair's a bit messy though, so I don't know if you want to...
Go and do something about I have done all afternoon, Ted. In addition to being my wonderful son, you've also got a job which causes you to interact with people and help companies with their culture and connectivity. Do you want to talk to me about how the pandemic's impacted your work and what the good learnings and what perhaps the challenges are from that period of work?
You know, I work in technology, and a lot of the customers I work with are, you know, people in offices, but equally like deskless workers as well, so people in warehouses, factories, that sort of thing. And the one thing that seems to be sort of present across the board is the impact that it's really had on familiarity. So businesses, every business really runs not just on a series of processes and operational manuals, like it's how people getting stuff done in really specific environments. And the way most people get stuff done is by knowing the people around them. They know who to ask for help, they know all of those like tiny bits of like operational efficiency, and without the familiarity of actually hanging out with people, that's just gone. In a year and a half, it's been just almost wiped off the face of the earth. So a lot of the work I do, and we're doing at the moment, is really about rebuilding that familiarity and how people get to know each other. Think about like positive learnings, like a lot of people, myself included, and I think you as well, Mum, put a lot more focus on those interpersonal relationships that we really hold dear. Like you and I are of a similar ilk, quite. We both work a lot, and it's been very easy throughout our careers for us to both really focus on things that are important to us, like when it comes to work, and then often that comes at a cost. And I think when you spend so much time at home and you really actually see what your support network is, that stuff becomes even more important.
So what have been the challenges? What's been hard?
Really, like it all stems from change. Change is one of those things that psychologically that erodes away trust and makes people feel at ease. But like when you actually just break it down, like it's just change. People are having to deal with so many different changes, so much of the time. All of those things I think have put a lot of stress on people. And when I look around, it's the same. Everyone's just exhausted. Everyone is tired. Everyone is mental health is low on the whole, and it's all come from the amount, I think, just the sheer volume of change, and then all the things that come from that, the uncertainty and the fear.
So what are the hacks for helping people with their mental health?
Mother, we're getting into this now. Okay. So the reality of mental health is there's no silver bullet, and there aren't really like individual hacks. Like there's no piece of advice I could give you that would work for you, because everyone is different. We're all different machines, and we're all wired differently. The one thing you can't get away from though is just recognizing it. And I think the first and the most important thing, whenever I'd advise anyone on this stuff, is just to accept the fact that you have it. So the statistic we often hear, right, is 1 in 3 people suffer from mental health challenges, but the reality of it is 1 in 1 of us have mental health. And you know, I'm not ashamed to say in front of you or in front of anyone that I've spent a reasonable amount of time in therapy over the last few years. That's the thing we keep coming back to, is you've just got to do the work. It's like brushing your teeth. You have to do it, and you have to do it consistently if you want to get better. And I think I can think of so many, particularly men, who don't even acknowledge that they have mental health, that I think it would really help a lot of people if we all just kind of went, yeah, it's a thing, it's real.
Brilliant. Okay, if you can edit me
is that enough waffle?
That's fine. You can edit me about 4 minutes out of that, love. That would be great.